Did you know that one mistake could cost millions of lives? In this story, the USA decided the fate of the war in just a few days. If you're interested in the truth about World War II, subscribe and hit the like button. There are many shocking facts ahead. Summer 1943. Camp Crossville, Tennessee. Imagine the scene. A German soldier, eyes fixed on a bottle where a brown liquid fizzes and snaps like captive lightning. He has no frame of reference for it. After 2 years in North Africa, living on hard biscuits and ersatz coffee, this sweet carbonated marvel called Coca-Cola feels like the improbable made tangible. It costs 5 cents at the camp canteen. The guards note, almost casually, that American children hand over the same nickel from their allowances. Now widen the lens to that same summer. Across American prison camps, 371,683 German POWs collide with a reality that shreds every lesson Nazi propaganda had hammered into them about American fragility. They stumble into a country where ice cream is a routine dessert, where soft drinks are everyday companions, where candy bars appear so frequently that guards pass them out without ceremony. Can you picture it? Treats most German children had never even tasted suddenly within reach. These simple foods, confections of sugar and fizz, of chocolate and cream, begin to dismantle ideology more efficiently than any broadcast or leaflet. The arithmetic of plenty is written in carbonation and cocoa, in ice crystals and syrup, exposing an industrial power that recasts German deprivation not as noble self-denial, but as needless pain. What starts as wonder at American sweets will harden, step by step, into a profound psychological shift. The desert's end. May 1943, Tunisia. The Afrika Korps surrenders, and with it roughly 250,000 German and Italian soldiers pass into Allied hands. Think of those veteran desert fighters men who, under Rommel, had driven the British back toward Egypt, bracing themselves for cruelty behind the wire. Nazi messaging had primed them for American brutality and hunger. Yet within hours of laying down arms, they confront an unexpected emblem of their captor's world: American K-rations. Troops back home complain about these field meals, but to the prisoners they are treasure chests, crackers, processed cheese, candy, fruit bars, instant coffee, sugar tablets, cigarettes. Men who have scraped by for months on scant rations open these emergency boxes as if they were feast day hampers. Military records add another jolt. At the North African processing camps, the U.S. Army serves pancakes with syrup, fresh eggs, and milk foods long vanished from German military menus. The organized feeding of enemies with better fare than they knew in their own ranks begins immediately, though only later will its psychological force be fully grasped. As one German officer later told the International Red Cross, "We expected to be starved as prisoners. Instead, the Americans fed us better than our own army had. This confusion about American resources began our education." What would you have thought, hearing that, tasting that? Then comes the Atlantica classroom of abundance afloat. In the summer of 1943, Liberty ships carry prisoners westward, and the voyage itself becomes instruction. These vessels, turned out at a pace that seems almost mythic one, completed every 42 hours at peak production, move as many as 30,000 POWs to the United States every month. Naval records are blunt. Prisoner rations on board match or surpass standard crew provisions. About 3,500 calories a day. Fresh bread, meat, vegetables, coffee sweetened and lightened with sugar and milk. Refrigeration systems, standard kit on American ships, keep food fresh through the 2-week crossing. And most astonishing of all documented accounts note that ice cream appears multiple times during those Atlantic passages. Close your eyes and picture the moment a man from the desert front tastes a spoon of it, cold as a mountain stream. What else, he must wonder, have we been wrong about? The USS General M.B. Stewart's July 1943 log notes a curious entry. Ice cream served to German prisoners on July 4th, churned fresh in the ship's own 10-gallon-a-batch freezer. Imagine the astonishment men who hadn't tasted ice cream since before the war, now spooning it in the middle of the Atlantic. It wasn't just dessert, it was a revelation. When the ships reached American shores ports like Norfolk and Newport News, the contradiction deepened. Nazi propaganda had painted America as decadent chaos. Yet here stood the Norfolk Naval Base. 4,300 acres of organized industry, its docks handling in a single day what major German ports moved in a week. At the port exchanges shops meant for dock workers' prisoners, glimpsed shelves gleaming with abundance. Hershey, Mars, Nestlé. Company records from 1943 show dozens of candy varieties stacked at identical prices nationwide. 5 cents a bar, the same price a child paid in Kansas or Ohio. Then came the journey inland. No cattle cars this time. German POWs rode in passenger coaches, seats upholstered, windows clear. Dining cars offered full menus: fried chicken, vegetables, pie, and coffee. Men accustomed to hunger realized this wasn't a gesture of mercy. It was simply how Americans traveled. The camps themselves defied every expectation. Camp Crossville, Tennessee, typical among the 500 facilities dotting the country, boasted electric lighting, hot water, flush toilets, and heated barracks. Yet it wasn't comfort alone that undermined ideology. It was the PX store. Army quartermaster records read like an inventory of wonder. Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, RC Cola, chocolate bars, ice cream, fruit, cigarettes, beer. 3. 2% alcohol. Prisoners earned 80 cents a day later, raised to a full $1. With a 5-cent Coca-Cola or candy bar, a single day's wage bought 16 indulgences. In Germany, such goods required ration cards and connections. Here they were as common as air. Coca-Cola itself became the icon of American industrial democracy. Company archives show 5 billion bottles produced in 1943 alone. The U.S. military's contract guaranteed every serviceman a 5-cent bottle, no matter the location, a logistical miracle of pipes, syrup, and glass. For captured Germans, this drink unknown before the war became a symbol of American ubiquity. Every camp received deliveries. On work details, they saw vending machines and coolers everywhere, gas stations, factories, schools. Americans of every class sipped it idly, often discarding half-empty bottles. To technically trained prisoners, the uniformity was astonishing. The taste was identical, whether in Maine or Texas, a feat of standardization beyond any German manufacturer's reach. The syrup, mixed in Atlanta and distributed nationwide, represented an industrial coordination that mocked the Nazi vision of American disarray. Historical records confirm weekly shipments of 200 to 300 cases per camp, each holding 24 bottles. Camp Hearn, Texas, alone consumed nearly 7,000 bottles per week in the summer of 1943. And then there was ice cream, the impossibility reborn. Army documents confirm that camps with adequate refrigeration served it regularly in summer. The U.S. military viewed ice cream as essential for morale, so essential, in fact, that special ice cream ships were built for the Pacific Fleet. At Camp Shelby, Mississippi, on July 4, 1943, prisoners watched hand-cranked freezers turn ice, salt, cream, sugar, and flavoring into gallons of cold sweetness. The sheer casualness of it ice in July, cream and sugar used for recreation defied comprehension. By 1944, many camps had electric ice cream machines. The selection eclipsed anything offered in pre-war Germany. Bars and sandwiches at 10 cents, cups of vanilla, chocolate, strawberry. Quartermaster procurement logs reveal that larger camps ordered 50 to 100 gallons weekly during summer months. The supply fluctuated with weather and distance, but the rhythm of indulgence never ceased. And beneath it all lay one ingredient that struck the deepest chord: sugar. In Germany, sugar meant ration books and scarcity, 280 grams a month when supplies allowed. In America's prison camps, sweetness flowed freely, a crystalline testament to the industrial might and the everyday humanity of a nation its captives had been taught to despise. Imagine sitting down in an American mess hall and finding what seems almost absurd: bowls of sugar set out for anyone to use, no ration cards, no measuring spoons, just abundance. Quartermaster ledgers from 1943 to 1945 list weekly deliveries of 100-pound sacks of refined sugar to the camps. Bakeries inside the wire worked with free hand cakes. Cookies, pies appeared again and again on posted menus. Coffee, tea, cereal, desserts, everything was sweetened without a second thought. Consider one revealing moment from Camp Aliceville, Alabama. In August 1943, the humid air turned several 100 pounds of sugar into a hard mass. What would have happened in Germany? It would have been steamed, scraped, salvaged. In the camp kitchen, the staff simply discarded it and ordered replacements. German prisoners assigned to the galley reportedly watched in dismay waste where they expected scrupulous thrift. Chocolate told the same story of democratic plenty. Even under wartime limits, Hershey, Mars, and Nestlé produced millions of bars each month. The U.S. military alone purchased $380 million in chocolate products during the war years. Prison exchanges brimmed with choices: the standard Hershey bar, D rations and other emergency bars, and an array of chocolate candies priced at 5 to 10 cents. Prisoners noticed a subtle but striking detail. Americans had opinions about chocolate, choosing one brand over another as casually as if they were picking a newspaper. And then there were the Red Cross parcels, arriving monthly like clockwork. American Red Cross records describe standard packages that included chocolate or candy bars, instant coffee, processed cheese, crackers, canned meat, cigarettes, and soap. These were supplements to regular rations, luxuries that surpassed what many German civilians could claim as basics. Thanksgiving 1943 drove the lesson home with a flourish. This quintessentially American holiday became a national demonstration of coordinated consumption that outstripped anything the Germans had organized. Army records confirm that every prison camp served the traditional menu roast turkey with stuffing, mashed potatoes and gravy, sweet potatoes, cranberry sauce, vegetables, pumpkin pie, coffee, and milk. Think about the machinery behind that promise. Turkey dinners for 425,000 POWs, plus millions of U.S. servicemen worldwide. The message was unmistakable. German prisoners received the same meal as American soldiers, a parody of treatment that undercut the Nazi hierarchy at its root. Then came Christmas 1943, and with it, an unexpected wave of civilian generosity. Church groups, civic associations, and individuals sent parcels to German POWs. The American Friends Service Committee alone distributed 50,000 Christmas packages to enemy prisoners. Typical contents: homemade cookies, candy, toiletries, small games, and books. Cigarettes, writing materials. Local communities added their own warmth. In Tonkawa, Oklahoma, townspeople delivered homemade treats to the camp. In Hearne, Texas, church groups arrived with Christmas cookies and candy. How do you reconcile such kindness with a nation at war? For prisoners taught to expect vengeance, this was strength expressed as mercy. As labor shortages tightened, the boundary between camp and country grew porous. More and more POWs worked beyond the fences, and with each assignment they witnessed American food production up close. By 1944, roughly 100,000 prisoners labored in agriculture and food processing, absorbing task by task the mechanics of abundance. Picture them in Michigan orchards, plucking cherries headed for maraschino jars, the bright, sugary crowns of ice cream sundaes they now knew by taste. What would you have concluded, seeing the chain from tree to topping and realizing how routinely Americans turned harvest into sweetness? The scale of it left them speechless, single orchards producing tons of fruit, not for survival, but for decoration, destined to crown desserts. In the canneries, they watched another shock unfold. Perfectly edible fruit, rejected for the slightest imperfection. Del Monte's 1944 records revealed that roughly 15% of the harvest failed inspection, fruit too small, too spotted, too irregular, and was simply diverted to animal feed. For men who had seen hunger hollow their homeland, this was not just waste. It was revelation. In the beet fields of Colorado and Nebraska, prisoners encountered machines that seemed almost futuristic. One farm could yield more sugar beets than an entire German province. There, the truth of American plenty became arithmetic. 7 million tons of sugar each year from cane and beet combined. The mystery of endless sweetness in the camps now had an answer. It was the yield of mechanized abundance. Working near schools, they saw another marvel taking shape. Organized meal programs for children, hot lunches with milk, vegetables, and protein, served daily. The National School Lunch Act would not be signed until 1946, yet its spirit was already alive. The milk program astonished them most. Fresh milk delivered each morning to thousands of schools, a logistical ballet Germany had never achieved, even for its armies. Some cafeterias sold ice cream as an extra treat. Imagine the shocked children buying frozen desserts at school while German children subsisted on ration crumbs. It was not only hunger that these prisoners felt. It was a clash of civilizations measured in spoonfuls of cream. For those on work detail with minimal supervision, another window opened: American diners. These small roadside restaurants, chrome counters, sizzling griddles offered menus that, in wartime Germany, would have belonged to officers or the elite. The 1944 price lists still survive. Hamburgers, 25 cents. Coca-Cola, 5. A slice of pie, 15. An ice cream sundae, 25. A full dinner special, 65 to 75. The equality was astonishing. A factory worker and a bank president ate side by side, served by the same waitress at the same price. Could democracy be tasted, they wondered, between bites of pie and sips of soda? Then came the numbers, the ones printed openly in American newspapers. Production tables that dwarfed Germany's finest efforts. Sugar, 7 million tons. Chocolate and cocoa products worth 380 million. Coca-Cola, 5 billion bottles. Ice cream, over 500 million gallons. Milk, 119 billion. Compare that to German figures. Sugar, rationed and scarce, Chocolate reserved for troops, soft drinks barely produced, ice cream vanished, milk a rare ration. America's wartime output surpassed Germany's peacetime dreams. By late 1944, a surreal reversal unfolded. German prisoners began sending food home to families still free but starving. Using their camp wages, they bought chocolate, instant coffee, canned goods, and mailed them across the Atlantic. International Red Cross archives confirm it. Roughly 11 million parcels sent from U.S. camps to Germany, most containing food. Imagine being a mother in Hamburg, opening a package from your captured son in Texas inside, American chocolate and canned peaches. What did that say about the world? Even American rationing, when compared to Germany's, revealed a canyon, not a gap. Americans complained bitterly about sugar limits, 2 pounds per person per month, still more than triple the German allowance. Meat rations stood at 28 ounces per week, greater than what Germans received in a month. The Office of Price Administration's 1944 reports tell the tale. Americans consumed 74 pounds of sugar per capita that year, 10 times Germany's figure. Even in restriction, there was plenty. And beyond Coca-Cola, prisoners learned that it was only one name in a constellation of bubbles. Pepsi-Cola, Dr. Pepper, RC Cola, Orange Crush, dozens of brands, national and regional, competing for the same nickel. The lesson was unmistakable. Abundance was not a miracle of ideology, but a habit of freedom. Choice itself became a lesson. Multiple companies turning out nearly identical products, imagine the shelf lined with rivals, signaled a market abundance impossible under a German-controlled economy. Bottling plants thrummed in every major city. The technology? Standardized, streamlined, ruthlessly efficient. Single facilities pushed out millions of bottles a year, distribution fanned to every small town, every gas station, every grocery. By the war's end, American soft drink output climbed into the billions of bottles annually, dozens per citizen each year. Pause and consider that scale. This one industry's volume outstripped entire sectors of German consumer production. What would you have concluded standing on a loading dock as crates stacked like brickwork toward the roof? Spring 1945 delivered the final, devastating contrast. As American forces advanced through Germany, POWs in U.S. camps watched newsreels of GIs handing chocolate and gum to German children. Do you see their faces? The astonishment, the sudden laughter, the sweetness melting on tongues their own government had left unsupplied. That image completed the ideological demolition. American soldiers in enemy territory carried enough candy to give away. Meanwhile, the German state that had promised triumph had delivered hunger. Then came the liberation footage. Concentration camps opened, skeletal survivors receiving American rations, proof of humane impulse set against the regime those soldiers had once served. The lesson could not be argued away. Between 1945 and 1946, the prisoners began to return to a homeland in ruins. Many came back heavier than when they were captured. Their families in freedom had grown thin. They brought knowledge of abundance into a landscape of scarcity. Medical examinations recorded it plainly. German POWs generally returned healthier than at surrender, while their loved ones had been weakened by deprivation. The evidence lived in bodies, an undeniable ledger written in lost and gained pounds. Some men carried back final Red Cross parcels, chocolate, coffee, canned goods that became household treasures. Picture a child who had forgotten the taste of chocolate unwrapping a Hershey bar from a father who had eaten ice cream regularly, yes, in prison camp. From this collision of realities sprang a political reorientation. Former POWs became unlikely advocates of the Marshall Plan. They had seen with their own eyes that American abundance was not zero-sum a prosperity born of production, not plunder. Their testimony mattered. Americans, they insisted, could afford to rebuild their enemies. These men had also seen a country wealthy enough to waste food while waging a global war. What mental model follows from that? Creation instead of conquest. It is the blueprint that would shape West Germany's economic approach. Enter the 1950s. The so-called economic miracle did not appear ex nihilo. It drew in part on the practical lessons absorbed behind American wire. Former prisoners who had watched production lines hum, distribution webs flex, and consumers vote with nickels translated those observations into policy and practice. They had learned that mass production could make luxuries affordable, that standardization of recipes, of parts, of processes made quality repeatable and efficiency scalable, that consumer abundance stabilized politics by satisfying daily wants, that an industrial democracy geared to output and choice could outproduce authoritarian command. Ask yourself, what happens when a generation of managers and officials carries that toolkit into rebuilding? The record of this transformation is not rumor. It is documentary. Military quartermaster files, international Red Cross reports, corporate production archives, above all the Coca-Cola records, POW correspondence, censored yet preserved, post-war interviews and memoirs, academic studies, with Arnold Kramer's extensive research at the forefront. Kramer, the leading historian of German POWs in America, reached a stark conclusion. Food abundance sat at the center of ideological change. Casual plenty bowls of sugar, bottles of soda, gallons of ice cream achieved what formal re-education programs could not. It shattered the myth of Nazi superiority, not with lectures, but with a spoon, a bottle cap's hiss, and the quiet arithmetic of enough. The numbers themselves tell the story stark, unarguable, almost mathematical, in their verdict. The statistical summary. Between 1943 and 1946, the average German POW in America consumed between 3,300 and 3,600 calories daily. Sugar, 4 pounds a month, readily available. Meat, 32 ounces a week. Milk, a full quart a day. Ice cream appeared regularly through the summer months. Soft drinks, unlimited, at 5 cents a bottle. Now, glance at the German civilian ration sheet of the same era. Calories, barely sufficient for survival. Sugar and meat rationed to invisibility. Milk rare. Ice cream non-existent. These weren't propaganda claims. They were documented realities. The data itself made the point. Even enemy soldiers in captivity ate better under American care than free civilians did in Germany. The implications reached far beyond mealtime. Food culture became an instrument of transformation. When Coca-Cola returned to West Germany in 1949, it wasn't just a beverage, it was a banner of alliance. Ice cream parlors modeled after American soda fountains began dotting city streets. Candy bars and chewing gum turned into small symbols of renewal, proof that life could once again be sweet. Former POWs understood this better than anyone. Many became importers of American brands, translating nostalgia into commerce. To them, these products represented more than taste. They were tangible emblems of abundance, democracy, and modernity. The supermarket, too, was born from captivity's lessons. In the 1950s, former prisoners who had wandered American grocery aisles introduced the model to Germany. They grasped a vital truth. Democratic abundance required not just factories, but systems of distribution. Shelves had to be filled as efficiently as machines produced the goods. In interviews and memoirs, the same refrain echoes. One former Africa Corps officer said in 1975, "We expected to defeat a weak, divided America. Instead, we found a nation that could give ice cream to enemies. That's when we knew we had lost more than a war. We had lost our entire worldview." Another veteran, interviewed in 1985, recalled, "My first Coca-Cola was like drinking the future. It was sweet, fizzing, completely unnecessary and available to anyone for a nickel. That drink contained everything Nazi Germany wasn't: abundant, democratic, joyful." Decades of testimonies confirm the same truth. American abundance accomplished what no military tribunal or lecture could. The men who arrived as Nazi soldiers departed as witnesses to democratic prosperity. Historians today recognize this as one of history's most successful re-education experiences, achieved not through indoctrination, but through exposure. Why did it work? Because food is universal. Everyone understands hunger. Everyone recognizes satisfaction. The results were visible. Men gained weight. Their health improved. 3 full meals a day, plus canteen indulgences, contrasted vividly with memories of ration lines back home. Every plate of food became a lesson in industrial capacity. Every bottle of Coca-Cola embodied precision and logistics. Every ice cream sundae showed that abundance could be democratic, sweetness shared across enemy lines. Children of those prisoners grew up hearing tales that sounded fantastical of ice cream in prison, of endless chocolate and cold soda. Yet, as West Germany recovered, they saw the proof themselves. Supermarkets brimmed with variety. Soda fountains offered sundaes. Candy aisles dazzled with color. The myth of American plenty-born and barbed wire camps became the foundation of a new cultural bond. Many of those children eventually studied, worked, or lived in America, drawn by their fathers' memories. And what they found matched the stories: choice, abundance, and casual equality in consumption. Across decades, that experience shaped not just individuals, but nations. West German business culture absorbed its lessons: standardization, efficiency, quality, and above all, the conviction that prosperity must be shared to endure. The post-war economic miracle was not only about rebuilding factories, it was about building abundance for ordinary citizens. Today, McDonald's operates over 1,400 restaurants in Germany. Coca-Cola is as common as water. Ice cream, once unimaginable, is every day. The transformation that began in the sugar bowls and soda bottles of American prison camps has reached completion. And yet, the moral endures. Ideology can be broken not only by force, but by generosity. Not by starvation, but by satisfaction. Those German POWs who once doubted the reality of ice cream and Coca-Cola learned democracy's quietest weapon: the power to produce enough to share even with one's enemies. A war, won not only by might, but by milkshakes. An ideology undone, one Coca-Cola at a time. They had expected punishment and found plenty. They arrived steeped in the creed of German superiority, convinced that American weakness was inevitable, that a culture of consumers could never conquer a nation of warriors. Yet when they left, they carried an entirely new understanding. American power, they realized, did not come from conquest or cruelty. It came from production so vast it could afford generosity. This was strength expressed not in deprivation, but in surplus. A civilization confident enough to waste without fear. The 5-cent Coca-Cola became an emblem of that power. A society that could hand a bottle of sweetness to its prisoners without hesitation possessed a kind of authority no army could match. And the ice cream, sundae layered with extravagance, melting under summer sun, became its perfect metaphor. Ice cream, syrup, whipped cream, nuts, a cherry on top. Each element alone exceeded the dreams of wartime Germany. Together, they formed a vision of impossible luxury made ordinary. The fact that enemy soldiers could order seconds while German children starved at home revealed, in the most tangible way, the collapse of Nazi ideology. Many former POWs would later recall precise moments of awakening, the sharp fizz of a first Coca-Cola, the chill and sweetness of a spoonful of ice cream, the taste of a Hershey bar dissolving on the tongue. No political lecture could have matched the power of those sensations. They had tasted democracy, and it was sweet. Their transformation was complete and irreversible. Men who once marched under the banners of the Reich returned as unlikely apostles of abundance. They carried home a new gospel. Prosperity was born from freedom, not from domination. True strength lay in creation, not conquest. They had learned that America's secret weapon wasn't its bombs or tanks, but its ice cream machines and bottling plants, its capacity to make joy routine. In the end, those bottles of Coca-Cola and bowls of ice cream did what no battlefield could. They remade hearts and minds. The German prisoners who once could not believe such abundance existed became its most fervent witnesses. To them, democracy would forever taste like chocolate, and freedom would fizz like carbonation. Their story endures as a quiet parable of power. Sometimes the greatest victories are not achieved through destruction, but through demonstration. Not through taking, but through giving. Not through hatred, but through the simple, radiant act of serving ice cream to one's enemies on a hot summer day. The men who once stood against democracy became its most improbable ambassadors, transformed forever by the impossible reality of Coca-Cola and ice cream behind barbed wire.